thank you all. Thank you, Stephen. It is so painful to stand out there and have somebody introduce you and say things, and you think, oh, stop, please. And thank you, Jill. I just screwed this up entirely. Oh, okay. Well, maybe that'll work. Okay. Thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you, Ms. Diaz, for your support and your work. The North Carolina Justice Center sounds like a wonderful organization. And I'm sorry I didn't know about you before I got here, but there's only so much that one can know and do. I'm thrilled that the turnout. I always wonder when I'm coming to these places if anybody's going to show up. So thank you for easing my pain a little bit, at least today. I want to talk a little bit about the book, but I want to mostly hear from you in terms of what you'd like to hear and talk about. But a couple of announcements first. One is that it was publicized that my wife, Shelley Favre, was going to be with me. For those of you who were hoping to meet Shelley, I have to apologize on her behalf. 2 weeks ago, last Saturday, my son was married in the backyard of our home. And the Monday, before that actually, Shelley was out hosing off the side of the house because she wanted it to be more presentable for them, and slipped in some water and fell and broke her hip. My sentiments exactly. So she was taken, I took her to the hospital immediately, and she was diagnosed as having a badly broken hip, and they did a hip replacement the next day. And our fondest hope was, of course, that she would be able to get out of the hospital and come to the wedding. She was not able to do that. Aww. She, however, my now daughter-in-law, came to the house, got on her gown, and I drove her to the hospital, and she walked down the hall and into Shelley's room, saying, "Here comes the bride." And my son, of course, came, although at different times because he couldn't see the bride. And because there were so many friends there, we had a setup like this with a microphone and speakers, and I called Shelley on my cell and set the cell in front of one of the speakers so she could hear the ceremony of it. So she was really part of it in many ways, but just really, unfortunately, not able to be there. And then, of course, the question was, we had this nationwide tour set up that she and I were to take, and I thought, well, I just can't leave. And she said, my daughter, Erin, is here. We have friends here. We have people helping. You have made commitments to a lot of people in a lot of places. You may not do this. Get the hell out of town. So here I am with apologies for those of you who are only hoping to see Shelley. Again, my thanks to Jill Diaz and to Steve Deere. The kinds of people you find in this country who are dedicated to the good works. I remember, I think it was Václav Havel who talked about hope, and he said, hope is not, I'm paraphrasing, of course, he was much more eloquent than I, but he said, hope is not the sort of sure things that you bet on. Hope is that sense that there is the possibility out there, and that you then invest yourself in doing what is right because it is good. And these are people who are doing what is right because it is good, and that's the embodiment of hope. And I thank them, and I thank you for being willing to meet them and hear them and hopefully support the work they're doing. I've written this book, and it is, Steve was very magnanimous in his description of it. I've never written a book before and had no particular intention to. I grew up in a working-class Irish Catholic family on the West Coast, and my father was a two-fisted, hard-drinking Irishman who really didn't know much about fathering in the sense that we know about it today. He came from a generation, well, his father died in a fight, so he knew how to fight. And he was unfortunately very good at that. And my mother came from the same generation, 10 kids in her family. And in rural Minnesota, they both lived in Minnesota. She lived in rural Minnesota, and she never forgot, my mother, that it was a wonderful treasure to get an apple in your stocking at Christmas. And she never let us forget that the gifts that were ours, such as they were far more generously endowed than the things that she had had. And I don't mean she said that in a vicious way. It was just she wanted us to understand the value of things. And bless her for it. But my father's lack of an ability or lack of a willingness really to express affection and sort of provide learning, teaching to his sons really left a hole in my life. And as a result of that, as I look back, I realize what I was lacking, what I felt lacking in my life was provided the springboard for what I have written in the book as kind of two journeys. And they're tied together. One was the journey to become an actor, and the other was the journey to become a person. The journey to become an actor grew out of a sort of innocent development. To my sister, I had an older sister who brought home movie magazines, and in the movie magazines I saw pictures of people, some of them young people like myself, who were adored, as far as I could see, who were getting all kinds of attention and affection, and I thought, well, that's great. Maybe that's what I should be doing for a living, so I can get all those things, because I didn't feel they were being provided at home. And but it became a secret dream. My father was not only good with his fists, he was also very good with his tongue. And if you presented yourself in a way that he thought was out of line, it was very quick to come back with some comment that would cut you to ribbons. The one that is probably most familiar to everybody is, "Who the hell do you think you are?" You know, I talk about my dad and the relationship